you're the face of the business and the interaction of the business, but you try to offload or outsource as much of the stuff to your team members, but not the same kind of thing. Tell me who those team members are. What is that? Yikes. Okay. What does that look like? Who are those people?
They're. Do you mean like what are their personalities, or do you mean like functionalities?
Functionalities.
Okay. So, and this was an evolution.
Okay.
It didn't start this way, but where I am now is I have somebody who generally works on the buyer to-dos. So if you think about all the things you have to do for buyers, put the contract into your broker, follow up on paperwork, make copies, call title companies, all that stuff, set appointments for showings. Michelle in my office does that for me. Kate, on the other hand, will do anything that has to do with a listing. So if a key needs to be cut, a sign needs to be ordered, again, listing contracts, like they'll type up contracts for me, but, I look over them. But all the paperwork stuff, they'll do. Then I have a graphic designer who will do things like my business cards, my logos. I send out 2 newsletters, e-newsletters every month. One to first-time home buyers, I call it the scoop, and the other to past clients, I call it homeowner highlights.
Okay.
And I have not only a graphic designer who puts that all together. I have no idea how it gets to the people, but it gets there.
Right.
And then I also have a writer. She helps me. So I'll come up with story ideas, and I'll write pieces of it, but I'm not the strongest writer.
Writer for the newsletter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and if I have press releases or my bio or things like that, like I'll come up with a skeleton, but it's not what I love to do. It's writing. I try, but I'm not great at it.
Right.
So she'll help take my ideas or take my skeleton of something and kind of fill it in a little bit, or do research for me, or if I say, I need this statistic to prove a point, she'll find it. That kind of stuff.
What about other pieces like you're talking about, like, you have the one person who does listings and one person who does buyers. Is it like, if you're talking about like a coordinator of the transaction, it just depends on whether it's a listing or a buyer transaction?
Yeah,
okay.
That's what worked for me. Because if you really think about it, it's the same thing over and over and over again.
Right.
So rather than have like a person take care of the person from beginning to end, I've just divided it into, this is the task, and if you can get really good and efficient at the task, then that works.
Well, one of the things that struck me when I was looking at your website is it's selling the Jennifer Myers selling system, home selling system probably, which I love. And it's exactly what you said, is that rather than getting a licensed professional who needs to be a superstar or really, really good, it is repetitive. It's the same thing. I mean, you can we could right now write a list of everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
80%, 90% of the transactions. So do you let me ask you this, when did you start to kind of decide that you wanted to be a systems person in that respect?
There was a time when I was not floundering, but just a lot going in my head. A time when I was doing all this at the volume, close to the volume I'm doing now, with nobody. And I was just like, you know what, this isn't working. I gained all this weight. I mean, it was a mess. And I just started literally writing down things that I never was getting to. And I just said, okay, who can I find who's willing to do this for me? And then suddenly it all just started to become more focused in that way, just kind of simply just really sitting down and saying, what is it that happens here every day, and what choices have we made, and what's the system that I actually am doing a system.
Right.
And it wasn't until I went to a Dan Kennedy conference. That's how I found out about Craig Proctor, which is what my website's a template of, and how I got that home selling system. It wasn't until then when I started learning, I don't do a lot of the Craig Proctor stuff at all.
Right.
But what he taught me was there is a system that if you just start writing down the things that you do and the choices you make every day, that is a system.
That's version 1 at the very least, right?
And so that's what I learned from him. And I don't, like I said, I don't do all the things that he's doing. I mean, I don't have the time. And I chose consciously when I was doing that coaching program not to go that route. But I learned so much from him, and just creating my own way of doing things and just kind of sticking with it and just knowing that it works.
Well, it's amazing, and what you're describing with regards to your back-end team is, you've got you separating in kind of specialization, division of labor, and all that stuff. What's interesting is that you can actually start to, once you've written down the plan, then you can start working on it. And so many agents, I feel like, don't ever get to that place. They're just scrambling on the treadmill. They're just doing it.
And I was there.
Yeah, right.
Big time.
Well, yeah, anybody has been there. So it's unfortunately, but then then sort of common sense can kind of reign, and you can kind of ask, well, what does happen in the what is in the past year, what has screwed up our transactions? Let's deal with those things, because or why do people say yes to us or no to us? What are your lead generation? If you're using the Craig Proctor stuff, for people who aren't aware, it's a lot focused on putting bait out there for the buyers or sellers that then they opt in, and then you have a follow-up process for the opt-in. Now, if I went to your website and clicked on one of those reports, would something happen to me? If I put my information in, would somebody follow up with me?
It would be me.
Okay.
Remember.
Okay.
A couple things. One is we're doing our website right now, redoing it. Craig Proctor stuff is great and it's a template, but for me, I try to just kind of do what feels right and like kind of what clicks for me. And for a long time, I mean, if you tell me to like jump high, I'll jump high. If you say jump 7 feet, I'll do it. You know what I mean? As long as I believe in it, and I did, and I do believe in what he does, but it just didn't feel right for me. And I was doing enough that through referral that what I realized was like I didn't need the leads, those leads.
Those
so like
cold.
Yeah, which works
leads.
for a lot of people,
Sure.
and I think work for a team where there's people that like, aren't in the forefront, and that's not what they're interested in. If there's an agent who's sitting out there saying, you know what, I really just don't like being with clients.
I really don't like people. Right, perfect.
You can still be a great real estate agent,
Sure.
and you would be more like, not that Craig Proctor's that way, but you'd be more like Craig Proctor's now, he's been through the motions, but he's now no longer with clients.
Right.
He runs the team. He's like a manager.
Right. Well, he's pure systems. He's like, but it doesn't have the personality connection necessarily that I think you're describing.
Right, yeah. So it's a conscious choice, and it's all about like what feels right for you, and there's no right answer except like you have to do something.
Well, you were saying that you were revamping your website to reflect a new approach, but I don't think you shared what that was.
Well, if you notice on my website, like there's no picture of me. There's no information about me.
Right.
Like
I did notice that. I noticed that this morning when I was trying to find out about you.
And so everyone's been saying, Jen, like the reason we kind of do business with you is because of you. You should be out there a little bit more.
Yeah.
And so, so that, and also, like I said, I do write these newsletters every week, and they should be on the site. They're actually really helpful information for people. So none of that stuff's really there, and it's all things I'm doing. So we're working on that in our office.
It is interesting because part of the Dan Kennedy philosophy is the personality-driven everything, and that you're heard, and he calls it the person's heard. Agents call it sphere of influence. Now, one of the things that I want to talk to you about is the celebrity, and the project that you did with celebrity branding.
Yeah.
Just tell me a little bit about how you got involved with that, what that is, etc.
So again, I try to just do things that feel good for me. And for me, I really liked the idea of being seen as an expert. And because that's my goal here, is like, I don't want to be seen as a normal run-of-the-mill agent. I want to be seen as somebody who has specialized knowledge that at the very least our clients don't have, or the general consumer thinks they might have. But if you just kind of give them a little bit more, they realize that you actually know a lot more than they should. You should know a lot more than they do, because you're doing this every day and you're in the industry. And so that's kind of my philosophy. So I worked with celebrity branding so that hopefully I could be seen as that expert. So I just found it a way. They helped me. I wrote a chapter in one of the books. They gave us opportunities for like radio and TV, and it gave me something again to write in those newsletters I send out to my clients. Just say, hey, check out this radio news program I was in, and they got to click it. And it would just position me as the expert in the area, or at the very least an expert in real estate, and they probably didn't know anybody else who was doing those kind of things. And I think if you just do things that like are the right fit for your personality and who you are, just go with that, because it works.